Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have another episode in our Spoiler Spotlight series in which I talk about, well, spoilers and tell you what my thoughts are on them. But before that, just a quick reminder to click subscribe if you enjoy my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and your support means everything to me. And today we're going to be talking about Inti, Seneschal of the Sun. For 1 colorless and 1 red, it's a legendary creature human Knight 2/2 with whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn, and whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until your next end step. So somehow I missed this one throughout the spoiler season, probably because of the endless and constant spoiler season that we've been subjected to lately. But this card is actually really solid, and the main reason for that is the second ability. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, and let's look at what the first ability does. So the fact that it allows us to discard a card whenever we attack and not just attack with Inti is already a plus, because it means we can keep him back safely and send in our other creatures, and we don't necessarily have to take that discard trigger. We can just leave it if we want to keep our cards in hand or we don't have anything we want to get rid of, and then it allows us to put a +1/+1 counter on an attacking creature. That's pretty good. Giving it trample is also pretty good, so growing our creatures is great. If we have a deck that cares about counter synergy, this is going to be pretty nice. Giving something trample is very good. It can change combat math a lot, particularly good when stapled on a 2-drop, because usually 2-drops are not very high impact late game, but having this in play is going to make it very difficult for your opponents to ignore it, because you can just keep giving your big stuff trample, and they're going to eventually have to either deal with all your big creatures, which is difficult because you're getting counters on them as well with Inti, or they're going to have to destroy Inti itself. And using a removal on a 2-drop doesn't really feel very good in Commander. But where it really gets good is the second ability, which says whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile the top card of your library, and you may play it until your next end step. So that obviously synergizes very well with the first ability, because normally the first ability would be card disadvantage, and unless you are running a lot of madness in the deck or you really cared about the +1/+1 counters, then it's probably not going to be the best ability. But when that first ability becomes somewhere in between a rummage and an impulse draw, then it's suddenly quite strong. There's a lot of synergy with impulse drawing these days and casting stuff from exile. We've done a bunch of reviews of cards lately that synergize very well with that, so this is just another enabler for that kind of strategy. And the fact that you can play till your next end step is really solid. It doesn't say till end of turn. That means that if you do it during your opponent's turn, you can wait till your entire turn is over before playing the card, which makes sure that you don't accidentally break by hitting something that can only be cast at sorcery speed. Where it really gets good though is when you start to realize that this doesn't only work with Inti's first ability, but with any discard that you're doing. And then this becomes a very powerful effect, because it's essentially turning all of your discard effects into card advantage engines, and I think that can be very abusable. Now, it is worded in a way where you're not going to get multiple exiles if you discard multiple cards in one go, so this is obviously much better in decks where you're discarding things one by one, as opposed to, say, wheeling your entire hand, which is a lot less good with this kind of effect, although wheeling still works quite well with it, because you're essentially getting an extra card every time you wheel. That means that if you include this in a deck with lots of small rummage effects, it becomes very strong, because you're just going to be getting an extra card every single time you rummage. So turning your discard 1, draw 1 effects into essentially mini divinations is very powerful. I even feel that there's probably a lot of ways to kind of go off with this and have some really powerful turns where you can kind of combo, although I haven't really figured any out just yet. There's probably going to be something fairly broken, because an ability that triggers on whenever you discard is probably going to have a lot of nuance to it and more stuff that you can do with it that appears at first sight. So yeah, when you combine both of those parts, I think it becomes a pretty strong effect. Obviously, it's going to be very good in madness decks because they want to be discarding cards a lot, and you're going to be getting some nice card advantage then every time you discard. But I also think it could just spawn its own archetype and be the commander for a kind of mono red deck that actually gets some decent card advantage for one. So yeah, I think red getting some card advantage is something that I'm always for, and I really look forward to putting this card in my mono red decks. So there you have it. Those have been my thoughts on this new spoiler. What do you think about this card? Please let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.